everybody, and welcome to Week 7 of the longest-running, league-oriented fantasy football podcast, The KAEP. The only way they're going to catch up is if we slow down, and you know that's not going to happen. Scoring across the league down this week. Bad weather, the bye weeks are kicking in, and a little bit of bad luck come all together, and it shows up on the scoreboard. We'll cover that in the highlights. We'll round up by passing out some cheese to the offensive player of the week, the offensive snub of the week, and Pete's troll of the week, a crowd favorite, and that's how we'll wrap up this week's podcast. So let's get things going, beginning with the game of the week. It's Brant's Las Vegas Aces versus the Commish's Tampa Bay Champions. On Thursday night, the Commish starting Jarvis Landry back after missing 4 weeks with an MCL injury, and it looks like he might be heading right back out. Landry would notch 5 receptions, 37 yards, and only 3.7 points. On Sunday, it didn't start much better for Brant. Jamal Williams and the Detroit Lions giving the Los Angeles Rams all they could handle. Williams would finish with 57 yards and 5.7 points. And in Miami, Brant with the classic fantasy football dilemma. Your favorite team, the opposing quarterback, is starting for you in fantasy, and the best you can hope for is a shootout with your team eventually coming out on top, which is exactly how it played out for Brant. It was the Falcons and Dolphins. Brant starting Tua because Dak Prescott's on a bye. Tua with his best game of his NFL career so far. 291 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for 31.6 points. Tua got his points. The Falcons got their win. Brant eating his cake and having it too. And the day only got better in Tennessee. The Commish with King Henry against that porous Kansas City Chiefs defense. The Chiefs keep him out of the end zone, at least rushing. Henry with the pull-up jump pass in the end zone. He would finish with 86 yards and a passing touchdown for 16.4 points. Brant dodging a major bullet down there in Tennessee. You had Ryan Tannehill vulturing a touchdown from Henry. It could have been much, much worse than 16.4 points for King Henry. Here in Las Vegas, Josh Jacobs has to leave the game early, but not before getting his 29 yards, a touchdown for 12.8 points. While the Commish was getting points on the ground, Brant was racking up the points through the air. Devontae Adams from Minigoat in the first quarter against the Redskins. He'd have 6 receptions, 76 yards, a touchdown for 13.6 points. And A.J. Brown finally breaks through this year. 8 receptions, 133 yards, and this touchdown. All physicality there for 19.3 points. And Kyle Pitts, rookie tight end from Atlanta, 7 receptions, 163 yards, and the sweetest 16.3 points you'll see from a tight end. 2 spectacular catches, the rookie showing off them hands. The Commish did have some points through the air. Hollywood Brown against the Bengals, 5 receptions, 80 yards, a touchdown for 14 points, and that touchdown took every inch of the Ravens end zone to pull in. The toe tap special from Hollywood Brown. And in Tampa, the Commish starts the GOAT, who shreds the Bears. 99% of those points in the first half. At least all 4 touchdowns were. 211 yards total for 30.3 points from the GOAT. Some much needed points as Brant was beginning to pull away, but there would be no stopping the onslaught Jamar Chase would release onto the Ravens. 8 receptions, 201 yards, surviving the blender and taking it in for his touchdown for the day. 31.1 points from Jamar Chase. This kid is a stud. At least in the first 7 games of this season. Move over, Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. Him and Joe Burrow are the new dynamic duo in the NFL. You can't help but root for the Bengals. After being so bad for so long, they look to be so good. Jamar Chase, 31.1 points. The Commish was going to need some help, and he got some from Nick Folk. Place kicker for the Patriots. New England puts up a 50-burger against the Jets, and Nick Folk racks in 14 points, 2 for 2 field goals, 6 for 7 out of extra points. And going into the Sunday night game, the commish down by 43 points. He still had Jonathan Taylor and Mo Alley Cox in that Sunday night game for Indianapolis and the New Orleans Saints defense on Monday night. On Sunday night, Jonathan Taylor's first carry of the game, and he puts it on the ground. He fumbles the ball away. -2 points for Jonathan Taylor. It was a harbinger of things to come. Later on, Jonathan Taylor breaks away, but he gets stopped just short of the goal line. And wouldn't you know it, Carson Wentz comes in and vultures a touchdown from Jonathan Taylor. Taylor, though, would end up with 107 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, and 15 points. And Mo Alley Cox, who's quickly become a favorite target for Carson Wentz in the red zone, gets another touchdown this week. He puts in 8.5 points. Heading into Monday night, the commish had the New Orleans defense and special teams. They already scored 20 points once before, and they would need another 20-point performance to give the comeback to the Tampa Bay Champions. And the stars were aligning. There was torrential rain, swirling wind, and best of all, Geno Smith under center for the Seahawks. This had 21 points written all over it. On his very first pass attempt, Geno Smith looks into the camera, flips me the bird, and then flips this 84-yard touchdown pass to DK Metcalf. Oh, how quickly you can shatter the dreams of a comeback. I have been trolling Geno Smith since he took over for Russell Wilson. But I mean, who didn't? The Saints defense would end up holding the Seahawks to 10 points. They would register 5 sacks, but not nearly enough to bring back the Tampa Bay Champions. Now, I could go on about Geno Smith, but it was Jamar Chase who single-handedly dismantled the Ravens and by extension the Tampa Bay Champions. Brandt in another shootout, but this time he comes out on top. And kudos to you. You might have the best roster in the LVFL. I mean, you got to have a great team to take down the Tampa Bay Champions. But Brandt, with the victory, improves to 5-2, keeping the heat up on the division leader Josue. The Tampa Bay Champions and their commish fall for the second time this season. They are also 5-2, but still in first place atop the NFC. Moving along to the next game on the tally, it was Dak for MVP, Josue, versus Northern Kid, Jared Kovacic. We go to that Packers and Redskins games because you know Jared's got mini goat, and the Packers showing no respect to that Washington defense, going for it on 4th and 3 deep inside Redskins territory, and mini goat does his thing. Runs around, throws off 1 foot across his body, and finds Davante Adams for the touchdown. Minigoat would finish with 274 yards, 3 touchdowns for 27.9 points. Jared also has J.D. McKissick of the Redskins, 5.6 points, and believe it or not, he is the running back that has the most receptions the last 2 years. Jared also has tight end Ricky Seals-Jones playing for the injured Logan Thomas, 6 receptions, 51 yards, and 5.1 points. He also had that Green Bay defense and special teams. They have an interception, a fumble recovery, allowed 10 points, and have a block for 14 points. And of course, Mason Crosby, 1 of 2 for field goals, 3 for 3 of extra points, 5 points for Mason Crosby this week. In that same game, Josue fields a player, Aaron Jones, 19 yards and only 3.9 points. But his other running back would pick up the slack, Damian Harris from the Patriots. The Patriots put up a 50-burger against the Jets. Harris goes for 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 23.3 points. Josue would also field DJ Moore in New York, 6 receptions, 73 yards, and 7.3 points. But the catch of the game was going to go to Danny Dimes, one-handed. Does he have a dual designation on the ESPN app? No, he doesn't. I checked. which is unfair. Taysom Hill had a dual designation last season, but whatever. In the afternoon games, Jared's wide receiving core would put some distance between him and Gosue. He had Christian Kirk, 4 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown for 11 points. And Mike Evans, a huge day, 6 receptions, 76 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 25.6 points. Tom Brady becomes the first quarterback in NFL history to reach 600 touchdowns, and Mike Evans gives the ball away. They would have a Tampa official come over and negotiate with the fan. It took almost 2 minutes, but they finally got it resolved. Brady got his ball. Mike Evans got off the hook. That gave Jared a 16-point lead heading into Monday night. Gosue's lone man left was Tyler Lockett. It was going to be an uphill battle all the way. Not only did the Saints have a good secondary, but it was pouring and the wind was blowing, and Geno Smith was at quarterback. Not even the chump could overcome them odds. The chump would finish with 2 receptions, 12 yards, and 1.2 points. With the victory, Jared improves to 4-3 and trails the first place Tampa Bay Champions by only 1 game, and they play each other one more time. For the time being, Jared controls his own destiny. Gosue just can't seem to get his footing down. You drop to 3-4. We move on to the next game on the tally. It was the buzzsaw that is Josue up against his familia, Juan and the Orange Crush. Juan has 4 homers starting on Thursday night. Melvin Gordon III, Javonte Williams, Noah Fant, Tim Patrick, and the Denver defense and special teams. Juan, the point of fantasy football is to get good players on your team, not to fantasize that the players on your team are good. Javonte Williams was the one that scored the most out of all of them. 20 rushing yards, 32 receiving yards, and a touchdown for 11.2 points. And Melvin Gordon III, 18 yards, a receiving touchdown for 19.2 points. Your 5 homers combined for 32.3 points on Thursday. And that's a recipe for disaster. Oh, but then you catch a break on Sunday. Josue with 2 good tight ends. One's on a bye, the other one's out hurt, and he ain't dropping neither of them, so he had 0 points from the tight end slot. And he started Sam Darnold because Josh Allen is on a bye. And Sam Darnold goes for 111 yards, 1 interception, an anemic 1.3 points. So there was a glimmer of hope until one Cooper Douglas Cup took to the field. 10 receptions, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns for 27.6 points. Cooper Kupp, the number 1 receiver, forget fantasy football, the number 1 receiver in the NFL. He's got 9 touchdowns in 7 games. He's averaging 19.3 fantasy points. That is what quarterbacks on average get. He is having a beast of a year. Oh, Cooper Kupp, money. Josue also has Chris Godwin in that mauling of the Bears. 8 receptions, 111 yards, a touchdown for 17.1 points. And he's got Devontae Booker, running back from the New York Football Giants. 51 yards, a touchdown for 12.6 points. And James Conner against the Houston Texans, 12.4 points for his 64 yards and a touchdown. You add Alvin, the natural Kamara, on Monday night, and we won't do that to you, Juan. Josue survives the bye week of Josh Allen and is the number 1 team in the LVFL at 6-1. He was number 1 in the league for most of last season, and he takes back his rightful spot atop the league. Juan, how do you let your familia do this to you? You drop to 3-4. Moving along to the next game on the tally, it was Pedro, I See Dead People versus Joey and his Viking Nation. Joey starting the game off on Thursday night with Dearness Johnson, who? Exactly, with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt out. This guy comes out of nowhere. Dearness Johnson, against a good Denver Bronco defense, puts up 146 yards and a touchdown for 22.8 points. On Sunday, Joey starts Lamar Jackson hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. He's got 257 passing yards, 88 rushing yards, and a touchdown for 22.5 points. And in the Sunday night game, Deebo Samuel, 7 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown in that torrential rain for 15.2 points. But Pedro also had somebody playing in that Bengals-Ravens game. Joe Burrow. The Cincinnati Bengals go down to Baltimore and give it to the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Burrow, 416 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception for 33.5 points. That was a statement game by Joe Burrow and the Bengals. The league is going to have to take these Cincinnati Bengals seriously. And Chase Edmonds against the Houston Texans, 81 rushing yards for 9 points. And Tyreek the Streak Hill, I've got to make his 6 receptions, 49 yards for 6.7 points. Sounds exciting for ratings' sake. The Chiefs, the Cheetah, and I see dead people having a go of it so far this season. Joey just pours it on with his Tampa Bay Buccaneers starters. Leonard Fournette, the last 4 weeks he's been producing for you, Joey. 13.9 points, 17 points, 24.7 points, and this week 15 points for his 15 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown. You also had that Tampa Bay defense and special teams. Justin Fields is going out there just trying to play some football. And the Buccaneers, they pick him off 3 times. They force and recover 2 fumbles. They sack him 4 times. 23.2 points for the Tampa Bay DST. You throw Ryan Suckup on top of that with his 7 points. And Joey cruises to his victory, 113 to 72.9. Joey, you've been up and down all season, and this week you were up. You moved to 3-4. Pedro, the nightmare season continues. You drop to 1-6. We go to our next game of the week. It was Nick and his Killer Bees versus Jordan Auto Draft. Jordan starting Jalen Hurts, the king of garbage time points. Every time I look at the app, he's got 7 points midway through the third quarter, and then by the end of the game, he ends up with something like this week. 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 25.2 points in another double-digit loss. He also had mighty Joe Mixon, 59 yards, a touchdown for 11.9 points, and DeAndre Swift from Detroit taking this one all the way home. He would finish with 48 rushing yards, a receiving touchdown for 20.4 points. And where do we begin with Nick? How about with his highest score, the place kicker, Young Hoku? And that pretty much says it all right there. 3 for 3 for field goals, 3 for 3 for extra points. Young Hoku led the Killer Bees in scoring this week with 12 points, even though DeAndre Hopkins, D-Hop, 7 receptions, 53 yards, and a touchdown only amounted to 11.3 points. But the story of the day was the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes go down into Tennessee, and for the first time in his NFL career, Patrick Mahomes is held without a touchdown, 206 yards, 1 interception, and he's lucky to come out of that game alive. Seriously, taking this nasty hit as he goes down, a thigh to the head, snapping the head back. He would leave the game and not come back. He's not in the concussion protocol, so he'll be available next week. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are at 3-4, and having a dynasty isn't as easy as you thought it would be now, is it? Nick, you drop to 2-5, and Jordan, you improve to 3-4. And there you have it, Week 7 in the books. The Las Vegas Aces take down the Tampa Bay Champions, snapping the 3-game winning streak the Champions were on. Josue, with his win, has a 3-game winning streak and is now the number 1 team in the LVFL at 6-1. Right behind him is Brant, who also with his win this week has a 3-game winning streak. Those were the headlines for Week 7. Let's conclude this podcast by passing out some cheese. Our offensive player of the week is Joe Burrow, 416 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception for 33.5 points. Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals go down to Baltimore and make a statement. That connection of Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase worked in LSU, and it hasn't missed a beat here in the NFL. Joe Burrow, our offensive player of the week. Our offensive snub of the week is going to go to Pedro for having C.J. Uzomah on the bench. 3 receptions, 91 yards, and 2 touchdowns for 21.1 points from the tight end slot. Oh, Chief, Darren the Baller Waller out, and you had him in your starting lineup with C.J. Uzomah on the bench. Oh, don't give up yet. But if you do, I'll trade you Jeremy McNichols and T.Y. Hilton for Darrell Henderson Jr. and Tyreek the Streak Hill. Pedro and C.J. Uzomah are offensive snub of the week. And Pete's troll of the week is going to go to the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears franchise has always prided itself in its defense. It's been the offense that's left a lot to be desired. In their last Super Bowl appearance against Peyton Manning and the Colts in the rain, it was the punt returner and kick returner that was the biggest threat to scoring points. That defense would have loved to have had the GOAT. Peyton Manning would have folded under the pressure of playing Tom Brady in bad weather. The GOAT would be doing a discount double-check up Packer fans telling them how he's owned them all his career. We'd be talking about the GOAT, not the Bears, and our Blues Brothers would have been portrayed by Brady and Gronk had Tom Brady been a Chicago Bear. Next week, we've got the premier matchup of the Tampa Bay Champions versus the Raider Nation, the 2 top teams in the LVFL. It'll mark the halfway point of fantasy football season. That concludes Week 7, and we will see you in Week 8. This is The Cap, the flagship podcast of the LVFL. And to everybody out there in the LVFL universe, we say good night from league offices.